Hey, I'm Coop's dad, and this is the Coop's Advice podcast.
I was just on the website looking at this stuff. I was like, way past my prime, way too old and fat for it. But those skateboard decks are cool, man. They look cool hanging on my office wall. I was thinking about getting one.
So you saw that?
Yeah, it was neat.
So let me give you a little story behind that. So we do merchandise sales off our website to fund our platform, our foundation.
Okay.
We have never asked for money.
Right.
It comes in from donations, people we know, people who feel touched, merchandise sales. Mm-hmm. We have started to ask for donations only for one project, and that was we got approached last year from a filmmaker that he wanted to do a documentary about Cooper's life because of, I think there's this whole genre that's really like this TikTok group during COVID that blew up, and it seemed to coincide with fentanyl and all that stuff. And so so we're asking for donations for the documentary.
Okay.
But we have right now Black Friday that we're going to extend through the weekend.
Okay.
But my wife launched those 2 skateboard decks.
Really?
And they are new, and like no one's really noticed it yet. A couple of people have made some comments, but you saw that.
Yeah.
And my son was a big skateboarder.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I see the videos.
Yeah.
I follow you on social media.
Okay, so I didn't know if you did, and so there's a group that resonates with that, and the idea came up. Why don't we do some decks, because we were always going with him. He was breaking a deck almost every week.
Yeah.
And so when those came up, I got to tell you, we just like totally lost it and cried because it was so really a piece of him that not a lot of people knew about.
Yeah.
So
that's special, man. That's very cool.
But anyway, thanks for the swag.
Yeah.
This is good.
Sorry, guys, I'm cracking on a mint here. I'll be done with it in a second. So. He's probably like,
No, you're all good. You're all good. I wanted to say thank you for doing this. You know, we were here over a year ago with Bill Bodner, and you know, I met Bill through well, it was kind of a long about way. I met Bill because we got reached out to have our son be part of the Faces of Fentanyl in Virginia.
yes.
And then that gal connected with us to, I think it was Nicole.
Nicole.
And then it came up, we were doing that, and then Bill came in, and we had a great session with Bill. Bill's also been interviewed for the documentary.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
because he
very
was
cool.
right in the thick of that whole.
Yeah.
And then,
He's great. I mean, he really, I mean, he just like really took to the whole like media, so like very comfortable. You know what I mean? Like just relaxed and comfortable. I watch him still today, and I go, oh man, I hope I can do that.
he looks like he's professional, like he came from the media.
Yeah.
But I see his passion. You know, let me say this, because there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. There's other lanes that are equally as important, like human trafficking, like you talk about any kind of crime. This is important from the standpoint that there are people that are dying that didn't plan on dying and don't need to die.
Right.
So this is, and I think the public doesn't truly understand that.
Yeah.
I still think a lot of the public thinks that this is self-inflicted, they're addicts, they do drugs, this is what happens when you do that.
Yeah.
It's not the case for the great majority of it.
And that's what has changed so much. You know what I mean? This is not, and I talk about that when I do talks places. You know, I say, hey, and I'm not trying to minimize anyone else, but these aren't people who have been hard drug users for 20 years and one night it just went over the line. You know what I mean? That's not the case. I mean, and I cite examples. I'm like, this is your son. This is the 16-year-old cheerleader who sprained her ankle at cheerleading practice, and she has a game on Friday night, so she, you know, takes a synthetic opioid to try to get through the pain so she can perform and wakes up. And doesn't wake up. You know, and this is what
I've seen this. This is where someone goes, this is better than doing the Advil, and you'll feel fine for tonight.
Yeah.
And then you'll get to sleep, and then all of a sudden you're gone.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, we want to be able to get the vernacular changed.
Yeah.
From accidental overdose to those cases that are poisonings. And when I said earlier that it's greater is, you know, I don't know what it's like in other states, but I'm going to preface this whole podcast today. My framework has changed from the very beginning when I got involved and got started with this. I say this, I wish I knew then what I knew now.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of different things.
Oh yeah.
And I wish I didn't have to do that.
I know.
But our son was, our world, we're very lucky. I find that the Noriega family is very fortunate. When Cooper passed away, and when I went up to the coroner to get his stuff, they basically said this is an accidental overdose. And that's how it was. And it was going to be, talk to this case guy and, whatever. So I talked to the head detective that was in charge of this out of Burbank. And basically, it was an accidental overdose, and that's how it was, and we're sorry. And so, however, this guy, whatever prompted him, when I talked to him the next time, he said, I'm not ready to sign off on this yet. Let me get back to you. And so I think what happened is he did a deeper dive into the cell phone. And what he basically said to me was, there's really not much I can do on my end. We're really hamstrung here in California by the hoops we have to jump through to prove somebody might be accountable and culpable for a death. But we're going to bring in a federal agency that has a different level of hoops to jump through. And they've offered their resources to us. So let me see where this goes. And lo and behold, it ended up, just kind of layman's term, that there was enough there to get an indictment and to file charges. Whereas the vast majority of everyone else never goes that far.
Yeah.
And I think that is a result of the culture coming from the top down, where you guys, the DEA, feels that or believes that it's really the mission of the moment, and you reach out to local authorities and offer your services and press upon them so that a detective like our detective will remember that and say, let me make that call. Because they don't have that at the local and state level today. And that has to change.
I think it is changing.
It is changing.
I
We've
think
had
it's
some things recently that's happened.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful for that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that way
No.
for several years.
No.
And there are a number of families. I mean, seriously, I speak to probably a mom. Usually it's a mom, once a week, a new one, about they're thankful. They want to follow our case because somehow there's some hope and solace that if something results in and some accountability on our end, it helps them. But man, I feel bad because they're not going to get that closure. And there are cases. These are cases where their kids have been killed from fentanyl, but there's just not enough there to get a conviction or a plea or whatever.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means you don't have enough.
And that's that's tough to swallow for some parents. You know what I mean? And I understand that. I mean, it is, because like you said, it's not like it didn't happen. We know it happened, but maybe the phone records aren't there. We don't have anyone who knows,
it's not conclusive
it's just not conclusive enough.
Understand
And
that.
like I was speaking with one of the heads over at the U.S. Attorney's office, and he's like, Matt, man, he goes, the Central District of California, he's like, I have 100 and some AUSAs. We service millions of people. You know what I mean? He's like, I just don't have the people, and that's a legitimate explanation. It's like, I mean, it's hard, so I'm glad though that in your case that it did work, and we're trying to make it work. I mean, we have, I think 135 pending indictments right now that we're sitting on, right? Done over 500 nationwide. But look at LA has really
If you look at it compared to
spearheaded it.
How many people are dying?
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
It's, and then the folks that talk to us, I'm empathetic and I'm thankful, but I also let them know, it's not as easy as you think.
It's not.
I'm saying on the end that I'm at,
Yeah.
I have this shoe waiting to drop.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I want it over.
Yeah.
I want to get that part beyond us. I'm hopeful that it'll be a positive result, but if it's not, I'm fine too. But I want that legal part to be behind because the amount of anxiety and it creates, and because you just don't know, you have to just compartmentalize this and keep it from getting into your, taking you a dark side.
And for people who aren't familiar with the legal system and don't understand it, it can be incredibly frustrating, And so, I get it. Like, I can imagine, like you said, the anxiety that you deal with just because it's all just still right here. You know what I mean?
Well, it's every bail hearing I go to.
Yeah.
Every time I'm in court, which I'm thankful enough that our prosecutor and the judges want me to speak and allow me to speak.
Yeah.
And I think it's helpful. I explained to my wife didn't go to the last one. She was out of town, but I remember I never know what to say when I'm going in to speak in the court. I kind of just pray and let my son let me know what does he want to be said here, and it always just comes to me. But they're talking, they're legal wrangling. The defense attorney and the prosecuting attorney and the judge, and I end up becoming like, hey, I'm the voice here to remind you guys that someone has died as a result of this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring you back to reality for a second.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I understand the legal wrangling and it gets the fact that somebody died gets lost, gets diluted.
Right.
So I think it's important to do that. But Matt, you're probably aware of the Jelly Roll guy.
Oh yeah.
How he put it, how many people are dying a day.
Yeah.
Basically like an airplane.
Yeah. If we had an airplane crashing every day across.
What do you think would happen to the entire
shut
airline
down.
service?
It would just shut down. I mean.
So and we're dealing with, I don't know, hundreds a day.
Yeah.
Couple hundred plus 300 a day dying from this. I think we're getting some improvement of it, but it's I want to make clear that if it wasn't for the DEA, I don't think we would have any dent, bite, much of anything happening with the fentanyl crisis.
Yeah.
And you guys are the superheroes of this whole moment, and the world isn't aware about it. I don't think the world is, and you might get thrown into the box of being the government, but if it wasn't for the DEA, more people would be dying, and there would be no accountability, in my opinion, very little accountability. And so I'm ultimately very grateful and thankful. I don't know why this happened, but I believe that our connection and having you guys come in and through our platform is to spread that awareness about this whole crisis and about how important you guys are in this. And my hope is it continues.
Well, thank you.
Because I know that change of leadership can be whatever, right?
It can, but I don't foresee any type of major shift to be. I mean, it's still a threat. It doesn't matter what angle you're looking at this thing from. The problem's still the problem. We're still going to attack it. But I think that the culture that's been built here, especially with the family summits and the engagement, I think I don't see that really going anywhere. I mean, that's going to be something that we have to continue doing because I think it's just. I mean, I've said this 100 times. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it on the podcast. We're not arresting our way out of this problem, man.
No,
we're just
but
not.
You remember when I met you at the family summit earlier in the year, and there was a lot of families there that were part of foundations.
Yeah.
And it got heated.
Yeah.
It got heated because it wasn't because of what you guys weren't doing. It got heated because there's issues with other agencies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily with the agencies. I think it's with the agencies being hamstrung in what they can do.
Yeah, it's more the legislative side of things,
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you guys handled it really well, being empathetic and kind of steering it back in the lane of hey, look, that's not our lane. This is our lane. And this is what we're doing.
That's what we're trying to do. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those things. It's
Well, you're on the front lines.
And it
You're
can't
you're
get
in the
heated.
front line.
Yeah, and listen, it can't get heated. We talk about this stuff. You know, I talk to the agents and hey, sometimes you'll remember that particular incident, right? There was one gentleman who was very, very heated, you know, and it was kicked off by a comment, which in the defense of that investigator, he actually has a thing he says that ends a different way, you know what I mean? But it was the wrong audience, you know what I mean? And we talked about that a little bit, and I tell these guys all the time, like, listen, man, you're dealing with people who have experienced the worst thing that life can hand you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes they just need to kick something, and it might be you, so just hold your breath and take it, you know what I mean?
That's true.
It is.
Zedge asked this right before we got started, just as you knocked on the door. He asked how my wife was doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, some days are tougher.
Yeah.
Some days I wonder if she's going to be there.
Yeah.
And Monday will be 2.5 years exactly,
Yeah.
which I just can't even believe it's 2.5 years. But it never goes away.
Yeah.
And you're right. There are times where she just wants to, you know, unload on something because underneath all the anger is pain. And I experience it, and we bottle it up, and we have to contain it, and there's times where you can let it go, but there's times like a boiling pot, you can't turn the heat down and it just boils over.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful that, am I taking it out on somebody, you know, needlessly? And, you know, just because it's really about me, it's not about them. That's what we saw that day.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of pain.
Yeah. That's absolutely, that's what
But
it
there was a
yeah.
lot of gratefulness for you guys.
Yeah. No. And listen, and we're overwhelmed by it. I mean, we feel it from you guys. I mean, it's and hey, it's a nice feeling from this side to have someone actually go, well, thank you, you know, because in our line of work, you don't get that a whole lot, you know.
Yeah.
Especially, listen, one of the things, I mean, this is about me, right? But I used to like working gangs, like working street gangs, you know, and you know, I'd go back and forth with my buddies that were working some giant cartel case, you know, and I say, why are you working the street gangs, man? I go, this is so impactful, man. You know, I've had people, like neighbors come up to me and go, God, thank you for locking that guy up. He's killed like 3 people, but nobody will testify
And they're
against
living
him. You know,
in fear.
and they're living in fear, right? So I
Yeah.
love that, like to be able to see that, right? Because that's why we all get into this, right? Is to try to make a difference. I mean, and so that is important, right? And it's motivating for our people, our men and women, you know, that are doing this, and when they come to these things like the family summits, and there's not one person on the DEA side of the house that leaves there unaffected.
I saw it in the faces. I saw a number of
You'll see
people on the side crying.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, not in a lot of guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I can't have a conversation with you without thinking about my own children. You know what I mean? And
You have to.
You have to. You know, and it's just, if you're not affected by that, man, there's something wrong with you. You know? So.
Well, I'll share with you where we're at. We're in a different place than we were 2 years ago. You know, when we started, we got 2.5 when we started this. I think it was 11 months when I met with Bill here. A lot's happened, but I also want to find out, like, what's happening today with what you're saying. Where are we today with this crisis? Okay. I know there's been some changes. I know there's been some reduction in deaths and things of that sort. I think I have my own reasons why, but I want to hear from you guys. Where are we with this today?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, give me a state of the union where we're at with fentanyl.
Making progress, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yep.
You know, I think when you look at, you know, even just this, to just say it coldly, you know, the statistics, right? I think we're down like 14% of the overdose deaths, of the poisonings. Unfortunately, because there's so many people that have been affected by it, that's a huge number. That's over 14,000 people. Right.
But
That's
however,
huge. But however,
it leaves about 70-some thousand.
it leaves a lot more, you know.
Which is still a lot of deaths.
It's way too many. You know, you made the comparison, you were talking about Jelly Roll and the airplane crash a minute ago. Like one of the things that I tell people, and you can sometimes see their eyes go, wow, you know, is hey, that year we had like what 107,000 people, right? And that's more than everyone who was killed in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan combined.
That's what's insane.
In a year.
That's what's insane.
You know, it's insane. Like it's how is this not like on the cover of every newspaper and every news website every single day? You know,
I have people that say to me, not till some politician or some real rich famous person's kid dies is it going to make a change. I don't think that's the case.
yeah,
I just don't think so. It's there's more to it. This is a much more difficult challenge.
yeah,
And I think people think of it as well too. They don't understand that it's not just stopping it coming across the border.
right.
There's-
It's way more than that.
There's
yeah.
it's a much deeper rooted problem from the drug standpoint
Mm-hmm.
to the other side, which is to the demand side. Like why
sure.
I'm choosing to do this, which is
Absolutely.
a whole other multi-layer issue.
Whole other multi-layer thing, man.
But you're on the side of trying to curtail the poison from killing.
right.
We're in the offices today of End Overdose, which I don't know if you know, they're a charitable organization that is solely dedicated to providing free naloxone.
That's awesome.
And that's how they look at it. Hey, we're not trying to stop drug flow. We're not trying to tell kids. We're just saying, look, this is going to happen. Be prepared. You can save lives. And I think that's one of the components that's helping the reduction. And I think there's probably more naloxone being employed. And there's people that would have died,
yes.
but they're not dying.
And that's part of, the education, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tangible result that you can look at, and incredibly important. I carry it everywhere. I've got 2 things of it in my bag over there.
I keep it in my
I carry it
trunk.
everywhere.
I know it's
we have it in
gonna-
our cars. I'm from the East Coast. My wife was raised out here, so all her family's in this area, and she has a lot of nieces and nephews. Our daughters are in their 20s. And we passed out to everybody, and not because we think they're doing anything, but because they're going to the parties. They're there. They
gonna
see
need
things.
it.
They're going to need it one time. God forbid, But we just make sure, that everybody's got it.
Everybody in my world has had some type of experience.
Yeah.
So there's no degree of separation.
Yeah.
And, we live in a kind of a semi-affluent place in Laguna Beach. And we've had already some
Yeah.
overdoses. These were actual overdoses of fentanyl in our community
Yeah.
that prompted our community now to with the security and the fire department to carry naloxone there.
Yeah.
To have it readily available.
Yeah.
Because it's just everywhere.
Yeah. As they should.
But
As they should. And you're in Laguna, right?
I'm in Laguna.
I've met some of the firemen from down there. They seem like pretty engaged people, right? Like,
Yes.
I went and spoke at a community event down there. It's been about a year and a half.
God, I wish I would have known that.
It was before I even I think ever went to a family summit. That's actually probably over 2 years ago, and one of our agents lives down that area, and his wife is involved in the community, and it was kind of wild. It was very Laguna, man. It was like this a
Right.
yoga studio type thing.
Right.
it was great, man. Everyone was so friendly and
it's
so nice,
Laguna.
and but that's where I got married, by the way. Right
Really?
near, oh yeah, right down the cliffs. Oh, what's the name of the restaurant where they have the little veranda?
Was it Las Brisas?
Las Brisas, yeah.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
right outside there.
Yeah, we live nearby there.
Yeah, okay.
It's a great
Very
area.
Cool. It's beautiful, man. It's amazing, yeah. Lived in Huntington Beach for years, so I just loved that whole coastal area.
While you were in the DEA, you were in Huntington Beach?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's the community, you could tell just by the turnout of the people, you know what I mean? And hey, the fireman who was there, I think he was a captain or something. He was born and raised in Laguna himself,
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
know who
super
he is,
cool.
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was neat.
Our son passing had a real impact in that community.
I bet it did.
I think it just scared the crap out of everybody that, my kid is probably out there. I know he takes Adderall. I know they might be doing this and that. And we tried to convey to everyone that there is nothing that you can take that you can be absolutely sure
Yeah.
that may not have fentanyl in it unless you absolutely got it from a pharmacy.
Unless you picked it up yourself.
If
man.
you didn't, your chances are 7 out of 10?
Was 7 out of 10.
Then
Now
you're-
it's 5 out of 10.
Good. Still not the kind of odds
Still
I
not,
want.
no, yeah, still not the odds you want.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't want a 50-50 chance. If
right.
you knew that, you wouldn't do it.
Right.
I think that's what's happening now.
Yeah.
We're seeing on our end, through our platforms, we're getting messages back from kids. We get messages back from kids around the world, but the biggest impact we see where there's the greatest issue is United States and in Canada, where a lot of kids are saying that they were going to choose to do this and they're choosing not to now because they're afraid.
Yeah.
They're scared. They've realized, and they've had friends that have either died or had serious, an overdose and in a hospital and near fatality. Yeah. So they're choosing to stay away from it. They're realizing that it's not just a fake perk or a Xanax, that it's been in Adderall, it's been in weed cartridges, in vape cartridges, it's been in weed. They found it in everything. They've heard instances of it. And so I think that fear has helped to reduce some of the damage that's being done, but also I think some of the positive messaging about that there's other choices that you can make instead of the ones you're doing for when you don't feel right. And I think that's the layer that causes this on the desire side, is the mental health side.
Yeah.
And it's that I think we also have to take a different perspective of that. That mental health is not a bad thing.
No.
It doesn't make you, like you're broken or something's wrong with you.
No.
It doesn't happen that way when you have a physical ailment.
Right.
We need to look at it differently when there's a mental ailment.
Yeah.
And there's positive things we can do to cope with that other than to medicate ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that might be some of the new changes coming along in how hopefully our country looks at, instead of being a medical-based nation, we may become a health-based nation.
Be a better thing.
Yeah.
Taking the stigma away from it, man. That's huge. It really is, and it's something that we're seeing even in the law enforcement community, right? When I first came into law enforcement, it was, got a problem, go out drinking with your buddies, stay out late, wake up early, this type of stuff. Now it's like, hey, we have we have what we call SRT, right? It's our SWAT guys. They're the hut go guys.
Right.
They're the
the guys that suit up,
the knuckle draggers, as we call them. You know what I mean? And I love these guys. I actually used to run the team in LA for years, and so I have a special place in my heart for them, because these are the people that are like raising their hands to go through doors.
Right.
And they have a program now. I'm wearing one of these Whoop bands, right? And
is that like a Fitbit or something?
What it does is it measures different things, right? Like biometrics.
Right.
But what they're using it for is, there's a retired Navy SEAL that put together this company, right? And they kind of, this is way above my head, but like the program they use measures certain biometrics, and it can kind of give you insights into someone's mental, like where they're at. Okay.
Really?
And because what it does is it measures like your what do you call it, like your recovery, your sleep, all these things, right? Stress level, right? And insanely accurate, by the way. I have to tell you, I was a little bit at first. I was like, oh, come on, man. You know what? How can it measure this or that, right? But there's an app on your phone, and you can track things, right? And so I was on vacation back home in West Virginia on the family farm, just relaxed, having a great time. I looked on when I got back to LA, I looked on my app. The second I landed at LAX, my stress level shot up like 10 points. I just went, oh my God, this thing actually works, But listen, I guess my point is this: they're embracing this thing, because what it does is they're all on and it's voluntary, right? We're not asking to pry into anybody. If you want to be a part of it, you can. And the team leaders will look at it and they'll go, man, so-and-so's his recovery for like the past 5 days is really low, and like red flag will pop up. Check in on him, right? Hey man, everything good? Dude, my uncle died last week, and I'm just
or they don't want to talk about it.
Or they
something's there,
right? Yeah. And it's like it's amazing that like the transformation that culture is having right now to like a resilience and like mental health
to be more in a positive health
way more. If you would have brought something like this up 20 years ago, they'd have kick you out of the room, but
that you're not tough.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the toughest of the toughest guys, man.
But these guys, I think it sounds like what you're saying is they're making choices.
They are
to be the best they can be.
They are. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. They're making those positive choices.
That's what we're trying to instill in the youth, my son's generation, Gen Z. It's really, I said this when we began this. Our son was 19 when he passed away. It was just a few weeks short of his 20th birthday. And this age group, I remember other adults telling us, because kids partied and kids, they drink, they go out, they do all the stuff that teenagers do. It's like you just got to get them through to about like 22, and they get a little bit more, I call life experience. I like to use that versus maturity, because if you're mature, the opposite is immature.
Yeah.
I would just say life experience,
Yeah.
and then you seem to start making a little bit better life experience choices.
Yep.
But this whole generation that went through COVID, and I call it TikTok generation, you know, very successful in a lot of ways through social media, and then a lot of harm in a lot of ways by having to stay home. You see a lot the screen time, the negative things that happen by being comparing to other kids, what have you, and then there's the ability to get drugs from the I'm not sure what the term is, but the apps that disappear, you know, like WhatsApp and Snap and Telegram and that stuff, which is just, you know, I think ignited the access to this whole disaster.
Oh, absolutely.
But you know, it was a tough age. You know, if you can just get through, we're seeing a lot of these kids come back with a lot. I mean, hey, we're journaling, working out, a lot of physical stuff, hiking, walking, going to the gym, lifting, you know, dancing, music, you know, art,
great.
which is like, this is a whole different selection of choices than getting messed up.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and it's, hey, you know, you hear it all the time, right? Like, you know, these kids, this new generation, this new generation, that. And we'll tell you right now, I think it's way tougher to be a kid today than it was when I was growing up.
It's way dangerous.
You know, it's just, I mean, can you imagine, like, hey, you know, if you had the unfortunate situation of, like, you know, being the victim of bullying or something at school, it ended at 3 o'clock. You know, you went home to your safe place, you know, your parents, your family, the people that love you. Now it's like online with the stuff. I mean, you never get away from it, you know?
When I grew up, it ended at about 3:15 when school was over, what we call the corner.
There you go.
And then it would end.
And there you go.
Yeah, so until the next guy thought he was like going to bully, and it ended. And today, you know, it's a whole different story.
Whole different story, you know. And I like what you said, because obviously I've you know, I listened to the podcast, you know, they did with Bill and everything. You guys talked about this a little bit, and I like what you said about, like, social media, right? Like, it's, a lot of people think, like, you know, it's the devil, it's evil, all this kind of stuff, but I mean, it depends on how you use it.
It's like anything else,
right?
Like alcohol,
right?
Like a car, you can drive super fast, unsafe, or you can follow the rules. It's like anything else. It's keeping within the moderation of what it's designed for.
Yep, and using it as a platform for positive things.
There's a lot of positive things that come from social media, but just like anything else, I think money's going to find its way to any avenue it can to make the most money, and it's permeated, you know, through social media to our youth, but also, you know, there's big money in drugs.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about.
I mean, I know you guys are doing what you do, but look, we got it comes through the border. The precursors come from overseas, China. I know that China routed stuff to go to India to get to Mexico to say that we're not providing it any longer, which was BS. But it's coming from there, it's getting to Mexico, and we've got two cartels that realize this is extremely profitable because they have their methods of distribution to get into the United States. And so what are we going to do?
Yeah.
How are we going to affect change?
Well, that's like you were saying earlier, right? There's two sides of it, right? There's that enforcement side, and we will continue to do that. You know, you always hear people say, "Oh, the failed war on drugs, the war on drugs, the war on drugs." I can't stand that phrase. I mean, first of all, no one in DEA ever coined that phrase. That didn't come from us. I think it was something Richard Nixon said.
That was a political
you know,
phrase.
in the '60s. You know what I mean? It was, but my thing is this, right? We don't sit around talking about there's a war on murder, a war on rape, a war on robbery. Do you think it's ever going to stop? Probably not. No. But it doesn't mean we stop fighting it. You know what I mean? Right. It doesn't say we just throw our hands in the air and go, well, you know what, that's it. Murder's legal because people aren't stopping. You know, I mean, so it's to me, that's the way I look at it. You know what I mean? I look at it like that, this whole war thing, because by using the word war, you're insinuating that there's a winner and a loser, right? That like we either stop it completely or we lost it, right? So it's a battle for sure. It's a fight, but it's a constant fight.
It's almost like dealing with triage from a medical standpoint.
Yeah,
Someone's got, like someone's got blown up.
yeah,
So we're going to stop the bleeding.
yeah,
And then we want to do what we can. They may not be back to normal again,
yeah,
but they're alive.
yeah.
So I mean, and there's going to be,
Right.
there's always going to be some coming through this way,
Yeah.
but there's a few things. You're dealing with the cases that are here.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming from there, and it's also coming from here. But I think it originates from there.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have to do to stop it there? Do you guys ever get involved with the other agencies or in the discussions or the recommendations that, if we've got to deal with the foreign nations, and what do we do if they don't want to work with us? Because we're basically just standing at the doorway, and it's bleeding through, right?
Yeah.
Do we have to go there to stop it?
I think that things are happening, right? I mean, listen, here in the U.S., it doesn't matter who the president is. We're always going to do our job, right? We're mission focused on doing what we do. The new administration in Mexico, I think we have hope for. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but
seems like they got it really quick.
There are
recently.
There are some, but there's also some people in that cabinet that we've worked with before, right? That we have history with,
Okay.
and that we know take it seriously. And like I said, I don't want to name names or anything
Right.
because it's
Understand.
a dangerous place down there sometimes. I spent 2 years in Mexico actually, and
I don't even want to travel there anymore.
Yeah.
I'm fearful of it.
Yeah, and it's sad because it's an amazing place, man.
Right.
I mean, we lived in Mexico City for 2. My wife was born in Mexico,
And they're neighbors.
and it's fantastic, man. It was great. I mean, but like, there's that other side of it, There's that other side of it, and hey, can they do more? Absolutely, absolutely.
Are there things we can do to encourage change? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like there's rhetoric about things that our government can put in place that will encourage change on their end.
Yeah,
But we're dealing with primarily 2 main cartels.
yeah. Those are the 2 big ones, Jalisco and Sinaloa.
I saw something this morning that Ann Milgram had said that if they were declared terrorists, it wouldn't change your ability to be able to deal with them here because it doesn't increase any type of methods of prosecution or arrest. You already
Not necessarily in the US,
have the
right.
tools to do what you need to do.
Yeah, not necessarily in the U.S. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be true. I mean, it would be no different than like what the FBI does with terror cells here. I mean,
Right.
we still follow the rules. If you want to surveil somebody, you got to get permission. Electronic surveillance, you have to have affidavits, judges sign off on it. And as we should. You know what I mean? Because we certainly wouldn't want to go down a road where the government just decides that we can just watch whoever we want. It's So that's probably a true statement. It wouldn't really necessarily affect the way things happen here.
What is your greatest challenge? Because just like we talked earlier, we're down about 14%, but there's still a ton of people dying.
There is.
Can there be a strong enough deterrent where someone eventually says it's not worth the money, or is it just we have to stop the demand?
I think working on the demand is huge, right? And I think that's also one of the things that we're doing now. I say we, but I mean us as a community,
Yeah,
right?
right, all of us.
Like I just mentioned, like the enforcement side of the house, right? And we're never going to stop that, right? We're going to continue fighting that fight,
Right.
But where the change is coming, where I think the true change is coming, is on the other side, right? People like yourself, people like Perla, like Julie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these are people who have loud voices and they're passionate and they're upset, rightfully so, and they've taken that pain and
You directed it
and
focused
redirected it into something positive, And I think that education and just getting the word out there is so important, man. I mean, because it's, this is something that's been around forever. I mean, listen, when I was a kid, okay, I remember I was 15 years
Same with
old.
me.
I was 15 years old. My family took a ski trip with another family we're close with, you know, we were hanging out in the chalet or whatnot, and their son, who was my age, a buddy of mine, you know, hey man, hey, I got these pills from my mom's cabinet. Do they make you feel super good? Do you want one? And I'm just like, no, you know what I mean? But hey, you know what? We all grew up in a time where people experimented with things. I mean, I was pretty fortunate. I knew what I wanted to do kind of from a young age, you know, plus my dad had been military. And everything. So, you know, I never really went down that road. But I had friends that did, you know. They're not horrible people. They're mostly really successful people in life now, you know. But here's the deal.
Basically, who didn't?
But it probably wasn't going to kill you back then. You know what I mean?
That's the difference.
It's the difference. And that, but what is also, what hasn't changed is that natural curiosity and that feeling of bulletproofness that comes with adolescence, right? One of the scariest stories that I've been told, I think it was Julie and her husband actually told me this, because they have some other college-age children, right? Obviously, they lost a son. And they shared this with me at a family summit, I believe. But they said, hey, this is what we deal with, right? Our other two kids have become activists as well, right? Because they lost their sibling. They're very passionate about it. So when they go to these, you know, college parties and stuff, they'll take test kids, okay? Right. And they say, hey, if we know people are going to do stuff, let us at least test it for you, right?
Exactly.
So a friend of theirs or an acquaintance or whoever comes up and he's like, hey, I got these 5 pills. Check them out for me. Okay. 3 of them tested positive for fentanyl right there. You know what his response was? Hey, but the other 2 are cool, right? Well, no, man. You know, like, and so, like, that's what we're trying. I mean, how do you change that?
That's maturity.
It is.
I mean, you look at it, and this is what just, you know, I look at it from an adult standpoint.
Right.
You know, I have greater life experience than the kids because I've been here longer.
Right.
But it's just like if you're out somewhere, you're hiking.
Yeah.
They're not going to mess with a rattlesnake.
Right.
Because you know that if you get bit. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get bit by the rattlesnake. You don't have a good chance of survival, particularly if you're hiking somewhere.
Yeah.
You just never know. It's like you see it, what do? You stop,
Yeah.
you try not to mess with it, and you try to get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It should scare the crap out of you.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a disconnect from that with drugs. And then I think there's some education with it, but I'm still amazed to find how many kids and how many adults in my peer group, my age group, that will still do stuff. And I'm like, are you guys insane?
Yeah.
Do you not understand? And they don't.
They don't, you know.
And I don't understand how, like, to me, the challenge is how can we affect change? You know, we're doing what we're doing. Here's what we have out here. We have all these platforms that started. You mentioned Perla and some of these other gals. That started because their kids passed away. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys reach out and spend a lot of resources and family summits and things of that sort as best as you can do. But the disconnect is this is so much greater than a rattlesnake bite.
Yeah.
We're not out there trying to kill every rattlesnake saying, look, the government's come in, we're going to eradicate rattlesnakes in the country.
Right.
We're not looking at that. No. But because it doesn't happen that often.
Right.
This happens. This happens.
Yeah,
every day,
every single day.
So, I look at it as like, what can we do from a global standpoint, collectively, from an organizational standpoint, from the top down? I don't know who would lead it, but from a government standpoint, if the government's got reach, the government's got money. There's all these platforms. Put a rope around it and say, look, we have. I mean, look, a COVID response. I may not be one of the biggest supporter of what happened during COVID, but the response that got out, that's what we need.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody, especially
because
in the beginning, everybody was.
It's coming to your door, every family.
Absolutely.
And I see it, and there's those that are just shocked. They can't believe that it's happened, or that their kid almost died. I go, it's real, and it's in everything, and we just don't know. How do we get this out?
It's such an enigma, man. It really is, because like you just said, like with the rattlesnake thing, it's funny because I use like a similar comparison, right? Like, hey, if you live in Laguna, you probably surfed, before. I used to surf when I was living in Huntington Beach. Hey, there's sharks in the water, but it's one of those things. But if I told you, if you're standing up there in Huntington Beach, south or something, and I go, hey man, there are 10 sharks out there right now, and 7 of them are going to bite you. You're not going out.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So it's like, if we're telling you 7 of these pills could kill you, why are you even messing with it? So getting past that, man, it's just so hard. But it's such an enigma too, because here's the thing, and this is where I saw it where it affected my wife's family, the stigma, right? Hey,
You mean by stigma that like we might have a kid that
Yes.
has got an issue,
Yes.
but we don't want anybody to know because
Right.
it's embarrassing.
right? And
Yeah.
and this is what I saw in her family. And listen, her family are amazing people, man. They are the American dream. You know what I mean? She's first generation here. I mean, her brother was teacher of the year in Orange County. I mean, her sister's married to executives, business. I mean, they've done, really well. Great kids, but one of her nephews, he was living the dream, like of buying a duplex, fixing it up, rent out one half to, young, early 20s, hurt his back working in construction. You know what happens then,
That's right.
And this perfectly healthy, in shape, handsome young man just dies in his sleep. And his mom is convinced that it was energy drinks. And I'm just going, sweetie, it's not, you know what I mean?
Denial.
100%, and that's where I'm just like, we have to get past that, man. Like, no one's going to judge him, but they feel like he will, and another part of the family, one of the nephews was having some challenges because he lost his cousin. It was very impactful for him, so he went through some stuff, and we're reaching out to his dad, and he was like, man, thank you so much, man. It means so much. We were kind of afraid because of what you do that you would judge him, and I was like, no, man, you can't be like,
not anymore.
that's not what we do here. We don't, like, as a DEA agent, we don't go after addicts. We go after the people that create addicts.
Right.
We hate
The people that prey on addicts.
Yes, for sure, but that's what people just assume, that the world is going to judge them, right? And that somehow it's like a scar on their loved one's memory, and it's just like, it's not.
It just seems, we that's the resistance that we run into.
Yeah.
I've run into resistance with families, municipalities, schools.
Yeah.
Where still a lot of them don't want to talk about this. They also feel, to a certain degree, that it might be encouraging it if you talk about it. But that's where, again, I look at it like, no. This is about educating you to how dangerous this is, so that hopefully a different decision is made.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't need to happen.
No.
I know we've got you and we've got other folks dealing with, the sources coming through, so less availability, et cetera. But still, someone's not being held down the ground and shoving a pill in their mouth. They're making their own choice. But the resistance we run to that is huge. And I'm hoping to see that it changes, but it might be slowly.
But and you're right. Like, there is a resistance, whether it's out of embarrassment, or feeling like someone's going to judge you, or hey, I even heard this one, and I'm not. I didn't hear this personally, so this didn't come from any school board or school district, so I'm not putting that on anybody. But it was told to me by someone in my line of work, right, that they were told by someone like in that arena that one of the problems is, hey, a lot of these kids, like, their parents smoke weed, they smoke marijuana, and we can't tell them their parents are bad people. And I'm just like, what are we talking about? How are these two things the same? First of all, but that's just, to me, are you just looking for excuses not to talk about it? I mean, that's ridiculous to me. I don't know. And again, I'm not putting that on anybody. It's not like it came from any particular school district.
No.
But I thought, wow, that's reaching, man. That's really reaching.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, we see it. I see it with particular people that, I don't understand. I understand the resistance to it, because you don't want to be in our situation. And it's real easy to be in a situation. It's not where someone is died from doing too much. It's where you have a child that's died, thinking they were taking something that shouldn't kill them, and then all of a sudden they're dead, and you can't go back, and then you're faced with the reality of it, and you got a couple choices with that. You can either just go, live your life, whatever, or you could do something about it and maybe help prevent somebody else from having that experience. But I still see that as a huge challenge, and I was wondering if there's do you think is there anything that we can do or platforms like ours can do in conjunction with you, other than doing like we're doing today, but from
You're doing it, man. You're doing it.
From a summit standpoint, I don't know what you guys think about.
I
you
think
see
it's
it,
fantastic.
so
What you guys are doing is amazing. I mean, I look at that 14% drop, and I think it has more to do with this than anything else. You know, the passion that you guys have, and I'm talking about the parents, right? And you know, there's a whole community of people out there that have been spurred into action over this, and your voices are absolutely the loudest. Trust me. And because you've experienced it, you know, and I know in your particular situation too, you know, it's a perfect example of, you know, you don't think this can happen to you, you know, because I like I said, I follow you on social media. I mean, look, my wife follows you guys, like she in particular, and I'll say myself too, like it's hard to watch some of the things that you guys post and not get emotional. Because you see how loved Coop was. You know what I mean? I mean, just so. I mean, you guys had so much love in your family. You know, and he's just, you know, incredibly handsome young man, lots of friends. I mean, you could just. I never had the privilege of meeting him, but I can just watch through social media and see how many people love this kid. You know, and
thank you.
Yeah, and I mean it. You know, and that is like one of those examples like you're talking about, like, hey, you think that can't happen to you? My daughters know who he was. I brought it up to my wife after one of the family summits, and I said, yeah, you know, he was a TikTok, you know, and one of my daughters goes, oh, I know him. I know who he is. And I was just like, you know, and I'm like, really? You know, and that's when it kind of first started coming into my, you know, my vision, like, of really what he had accomplished in his young life, you know, and what a special guy, man.
Thank you.
And again, like, you know, you have this tendency to think of like, well, you know, what was going on at home? And I'm like, dude, your life is laid out in social media. I see this stuff like with you, your wife, you know, the family, and I'm just going, dude, people would kill to have a family like that. You know what I mean? And have that much love in their lives. Yeah. And so but that's the message, right? Is like, hey, this isn't just reserved for one segment of society. This is everybody, you know?
It's like I said earlier, and it did not need to happen.
No.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the part that doesn't seem to get through to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That it wasn't like a self-inflicted death. This was a murder. This was a poisoning. There are people that are going to be accountable for it, one way or the other, whether in this life or the next. Yeah. But so that's the difference. We want to stop those and educate those so that those that don't need to die don't die, and the other ones that are struggling with their lives and that are killing themselves, that they might be able to make a difference in a choice and not kill themselves, not continue to do self-destructive behavior. And it's like we're shouting, and it's like falling on deaf ears. It really feels that way.
It feels like it, but I don't think it is. I think that you look at those numbers, and I think that is the result of what you guys are doing. You know, I mean, listen. Obviously, we're doing our side of it too, and we're working our tails off, man. The men and women at DEA. I mean, we talked a little bit about generational stuff earlier, right? And that happens in law enforcement too. You know, all the old guys go, these young guys. But hey, you talk about passion, right? And the agents that come on and have a passion for the job. I see some of these men and women, these youngsters, kids, I call them, you know what I mean? They're 20s, 30s, you know, and they are so smart, you know, in the things they come up with. And because, you know, like the cartels are constantly evolving, right? So we're constantly evolving.
They're real. To me, the cartels are like the porn industry. And I say it from this standpoint. You want to know how to make money in a new platform? Follow porn. They always figure it out first, and they make the most money. Porn, gambling, all the vices.
Yeah, the vices.
And then you look at drugs.
Drugs, absolutely. But, you know, like our guys are constantly evolving and coming up with new things and platforms and ideas. And I look at these kids, and I'm like, God, you know how much money you would be making in the private industry right now, but they're not. You know what I mean? They're showing up to work every day at DEA, and they're doing their thing because they care about it and they love it. You know, and so I applaud them. You know, I'm sitting here with you today, you know, as the SAC, but they're the ones doing the cases. You know what I mean? They're the ones that are doing, you know.
You came up with that, so you know.
Yeah, but listen, I
understand.
They make me look pretty good. You know,
it's like what I've always said in sports and in business. It's, you know, your team isn't successful just because of you. There's never one person that we only win because of that person,
right,
or we're only successful because of me.
Right.
It's other people that make you money,
sure,
that help you, and it's your team. You know, I had this example that my coach in college gave us. We have the sport I was in. We had a team of 6, and he gave everybody a, you know, and it was a total team of 12 to field a team of 6. So at the beginning of every practice, he would give every season, give everybody a pencil, and so everybody, can you break a pencil? So we're all looking around, going, of course, can snap. So and then everybody got 12. Now break it. And this is how we win.
I like it.
Every organization, the culture. When I look at, and it was, you know, really resonated when I met Bill, and I met some of the other guys. I think it was Bob Thomas, and then you. And I've spoken to a number of people back east, and saw the stuff with Ann Milgram. It reminds me of, you guys are in the category of like Lakers, Bulls, you know, those championship teams because of the culture, and you're successful. You're really making the difference, and I can't stress that more to our audiences and our public about, if it wasn't for the DEA, we now have a reduction of 14%. We would probably be astronomical in deaths if it wasn't for you guys. Not saying that these other agencies, ICE, Border, Homeland Security, etc., but I have a very good friend who's with Homeland Security that one time was in charge of the border from Alaska down to San Diego, and then from there somewhere down to Louisiana. And he just said, man, he goes, this whole thing is, because what we try to do is we try to stop terrorism before it gets to the border. That's our focus, outside of the country, before it gets here. Because when it gets here, it's a lot of places it's too late.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's the same thing that, you know, you're dealing with, the fact that it's coming through and it's here. It's a big issue. It's a problem. I want to see a change. I want to see. Hey, look, Elon Musk, the guy who I think did a great job by buying Twitter and kind of bringing a platform back. I think social media, that's a good aspect of it in a lot of ways, to be able to truly say what you want to say without being censored, because there's good things. I'd love to see someone jump in and provide more of those resources to help us all with our messages, with our resources, to be able to, you know, also the accountability. I mean, if there's talk about, you come here, someone dies from this, death penalty, things of that sort, there's deterrence. I don't think we have enough deterrence. I think federally, there's some serious teeth. State and local, not yet.
Yeah, no,
It's a struggle.
I would agree with you.
Again, if it wasn't for you guys, we would be another grieving family with an fentanyl overdose. 2.5 years, just whatever.
Yeah.
It would never happen for us and some of these other people. So I feel like we have to continue to fight for those that didn't get fortunate enough to get any type of possible accountability.
Yeah, especially, you know, when it happened, because this is obviously an evolving thing, you know. What it looks like today, right, with like Operation OD Justice and like, you know, our, you know, task forces where we're training up, you know, local and state, you know, officers to know what type of evidence they need to bring like a federal case, you know, all these things. It didn't exist 5 years ago, you know, 5-6 years ago. And
we didn't have this explosion.
Right. And so it was like everyone's kind of learning, you know, and like, you know, like it's, you know, to, I guess to, that's what I'm looking for, you know, to kind of take up for them a little bit. Like, you know, you're a deputy in Orange County and you show up and you haven't been trained. You don't know. You know, you're thinking, you know, poor guy, you know, took too much, he overdosed, but like you don't know, okay, let me lock down that phone, who's the last person they talked to, blah, blah. You know, so it is a good thing that it's evolved into what it, you know,
you guys are training some of the local
absolutely. No, we have we go, I mean, Bob, you mentioned Bob a minute ago. I mean, he goes all over the place. we have an entire task force, LA sheriffs. That's all they do. Respond to these things, because it happens every day, man. And what they do, what they're able to do is they're able to go out to that scene and say, okay, this is where we have to start, right? We're working this like a homicide, not like an overdose.
Right.
And because, as you know, there's so many things that go into it, right? You can't tamper with the phone. You can't do this because there's going to be rules of evidence down the road.
The rules of evidence are huge.
Huge.
Yes.
So that's
There's
so
no
important.
guarantees on anything.
It's so important. And we've actually put together like a list, right, of like this is
Like a
what
protocol.
you need to. Yep, absolutely. This is what the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to need to bring charges, right? And we're getting better and better at it. I mean, the reason is horrible. It's something I wish we didn't have to do, but we are getting better at it. We're getting more people made aware. The word is out, way more than it ever was. And listen, our partners in prosecution, man, they've been good with it too. I mean, because they're hamstrung too, right? Like you said, the rules. I mean, it sometimes, unfortunately, for a family, if the case isn't there, triage, almost like you said, right? Like, but we try. We try. Like even like in one instance, and the person. I won't go into it, but their child, right? We were able to get and indict the person who sold them the fentanyl. Not as a result of that, okay? Because there was some things that just wasn't there, wasn't going to happen. But the guys working the case just stayed on it. They were tenacious. Hey, we know who it was. We just can't. Let's just follow them around and see what happens. You know what I mean? Just followed them around. Started watching.
Don't give up.
Started seeing like, okay, well, this is suspicious, this is suspicious, this is suspicious. And we were able to bust that person selling fentanyl to someone else. And they got time. You know what I mean? Like, not for that particular crime, but it's like, but that person was impactful because they didn't give up. They wanted some justice. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, hey, it wasn't exactly what all of us would have liked to have seen happen, but it was something. We have a couple of parents that have reached out to us that feel that in our particular case that the same people were the cause of their children to pass away. Yeah. And again, it was like your example. It wasn't enough to indict. So they're hoping on us, and if it's not going to be us, it'll be the next person. And so it's such a it's a burden, but I welcome it because it gives me purpose that we might be able to help somebody else, maybe bring some closure for them. Oh, listen, I promise you that what you're doing with on Discord, and by continuing that, and which, by the way, let me just segue and say this. I was so, like, that one stopped me in my tracks. Have you actually been on the Discord? I'm going to, because I have not yet, but when I was listening to the way that Coop started, like, just days before, right. I mean, it's like, hey, man, I'm not trying to get like all thorough, like that was crazy, man. That's it was prophetic. That's like leaving something behind. You know what I mean? I say this carefully, but the things that Cooper started before he passed away, one of them was connecting with End Overdose, a couple weeks before, and wanted to support it. So it's been one of the platforms that we've supported because he thought naloxone was important back then. And then when he started the Discord, we kind of feel it's kind of like a Jesus effect, from the standpoint he was only on the planet for 19 years, but he set in motion things, kind of almost knowing that he wasn't going to be here, and for these things to move forward and take on their own lives. And the Discord platform was about a couple hundred people, 200-300 people when he passed away. And it's close to a couple 100,000 still around the world, and he designed it to be a safe place for other kids like him to be able to talk about their struggles with mental health and addiction. And you see it. I'm on it every morning. I've made a commitment to be present, share things every morning, and I'm amazed when I go and see what people are struggling with, and how open they're being, and how I'm very open,
and how everyone else jumps in to offer love, support, and encouragement. And these are their peers, you know, because maybe they can't talk to their parents, or they can't, or they're struggling with their girlfriend, boyfriend, or they're struggling with their sexuality, or whatever it might be. But they're okay, and they're not getting judged here. They're getting love, hope, and encouragement. And I'm like, what an amazing place for this to happen. And we have a head moderator, this gal named Riley, that does a phenomenal job. She's out of Canada. I mean, she does an incredible job. I don't know how she spends so much time on this, and she has a career and a life and all that, but she loves it. So far, as well as I know today, 2.5 years later, we haven't lost anybody.
What an amazing legacy.
We really haven't lost anybody.
Seriously.
We have these people that come back, and no one's reported if they have lost a friend, or there's change being affected there.
It's an amazing legacy, man.
That is like, how can I not do what I can to keep this going?
Well, you said it very prophetic. You know,
is.
I mean, like, just I mean, like when I heard that, right, that he had set that up right before, I was just that kind of stopped me. I was like, wow, that's wild. You know, like, but what you guys are doing, I mean, kind of to take it back to what you were talking about, the activism, you know, and you use the word activism, it makes you sound like, you know, you're out in the streets with signs and stuff. You know what I mean? What you're doing, Discord, right, your podcast, the things that I see the ladies going out to all the time. I mean, you know,
those girls do a really good job.
Lot, you know.
They're grassroots.
They are 100%.
And they're bulldogs.
100%.
They don't want to give up, man. They're out there, and they are grinding.
And there's so many
they're
people.
Fearless.
So many people in this fight now. Hey, listen, I'm going to embarrass her for a moment here, but I have my PIO with me here. And
She's smiling over there.
This is Ms. Valle Lopez, and she was a reporter in the LA area for 30 years, and she retired, and she thought, God, what do I want to do with this? Just like really meaningful, right? So she wrote a couple of books, and then decided, what am I going to do with all my time? You know, she was very passionate about what's going on in the country with fentanyl, and so she came to work for us. I mean, just like an Emmy-winning reporter, man. We're like, you know, like, and she works for the DEA.
Did you have an experience with somebody dying from fentanyl? You saw it.
Like the kids over at Princeton High School.
Yeah.
Just covering fentanyl deaths. We tracked Prince. He was one of the first celebrities who died of fentanyl. So just research on that. And I have kids all in their 20s. Oh my gosh, so scary. So I thought
it
if
is
I could
scary.
make a difference, I will.
Good for you.
And it just prophetically, it just came.
Yeah, you feel led, don't you? Like something touched you, and then it resonated, and you made the decision, you made the call.
It's meaningful. Every day I step into that office, it's meaningful.
Do you guys have any type of Faces of Fentanyl in that office, like back in Virginia?
Certainly not like that, right? That
But do you have any kind of...
What we have is, what do they call the it's a video. It's a screen. It's a rotating thing, right?
Of people that have passed? Okay.
Yes.
You have some type of memorial.
Absolutely.
I thought that was so... I can't even have a word for it, but so that everybody came in every day to that office in Virginia, had to see it, reminds them of what it is.
That's why you're there.
Man, I don't know if I could go there every day, even if I didn't have a child. It's just, I mean, it is everywhere, every wall. They ran out of space.
Yeah.
They're running out of, that's unfortunately, they're running out of spaces everywhere.
I know. And it's one of those things, man, like, I know that I've walked in before, and it's right outside of our executive office, right? And seen Steve Filson's daughter on it, you know, and I'm like, man, I remember her from when she was a little girl, you know, and it's just, it's weird, it's hard, you know, but like you said, but you have to use it as a motivator, you know, and this is why you're doing it. We're going to keep on doing it. And I think that the DEA, the culture in DEA, even the old school stuff, right? I've been talking a little bit about how we've changed in certain things, but like what we have always been, I think, has prepared us for this fight, because the culture's always been like that, right? So like a perfect example, most people are familiar with the Kiki Camarena story,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
One of our agents that was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in Mexico in 1985,
Horrible.
right? Rafael Caro Quintero, who was pretty much the mastermind behind it.
Yep. I know the story very
Yeah.
well.
And I was still in Mexico when we were building
Did
up
you
to the
know
cap
him?
shop. I'm sorry?
Kiki, did you know him?
No, that was way before my time. But his family has stayed really involved. His son is a judge in San Diego. His sister worked for us for years.
Wow.
But it affects everyone, right? And when I was a new agent, just backtrack a little background. When I was a brand new agent, the case had kind of gone stale, right? Because so old, no more new leads.
Right.
I'm the new guy in the enforcement group, so like, here, new guy, you're the case agent on this, because it's basically just quarterly updating reports and keeping it going. Well, when I had it, the marshals thought they caught one of the guys, and all of a sudden
Really?
it spun up, man. Here I'm this brand new agent. They're bringing in retired old undercover agents, and I'm flying down to the border and meeting with sicarios, and I saw how much effort went into this, right? The entire agency mobilizes. And my point is this, I was in Mexico, and got to be involved with the planning for the capture and all this kind of stuff. I left. They caught him the week after I left, which was fine. But it was, so I was so happy they caught him. But when we caught him, he's 80 years old.
Wow.
Living in tents on mountaintops, moving around by ATV, trusting no one, and for something that happened in 1985, because that's what DEA does, man. And
That's
I've had
right.
people ask me, they're like, it happened in 1985. Do you guys ever get past it? Like, nope. You know what? And if we'll chase him till he's 90, we're not going to give up. So the culture in this agency is made for this fight.
Yeah.
I'm not much on quoting TV shows, and I actually didn't even watch Narcos for a long time because I was like, I don't know. But we do, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I finally watched it, and there was one line in there that just really struck me, right? And that was, I think it was Steve Murphy who was making a comment about Kiki Camarena, and he said, Kiki's like Jesus to us, man. He died so the rest of us could live.
Right.
There's so much truth in that statement, because the knowledge of how motivated we are and committed to catching every single person responsible for that, it keeps our people safe around the world, man. It really does.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's a business for those guys, and it's not good for business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I lived in Mexico, so I felt that, right? I felt that kind of blanket of safety, just because it's not like they couldn't, you know what I mean?
Right.
They grab it, but I don't want the trouble, and it brings a lot of trouble.
Yeah, of course.
So I do
And that's
think
a deterrent.
it's a deterrent. So I do think this agency we're built for this fight,
Just a little sidebar. Am I too old to be hired by the DEA?
Come on over, man.
In any capacity? Am I too old?
In
Is
any
there an age
capacity,
limit?
To be an agent.
To be an
you have
agent, there's
so many departments.
so many different departments, but yeah.
See, it's clicking. And there's something I didn't know there was actually an avenue for. I always think big picture, like how can we put a bigger rope around this message and get this message to really permeate and utilize. It's like sports. Everybody has a role and responsibility. Everybody's got a gift. If you can, you want them to do what they do best. You want to put it together, and you want to do the plays that work. That's what makes successful teams, as opposed to just bring everybody out on three. It's got to be, really
Got a lot that goes into it.
right.
I
want to talk to you more about that then,
Yeah.
because there might be some type of something else, because I always feel that I just can't do enough for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
And
I
this
know.
is something that never planned on this being something I was going to be involved with at this
Yeah,
stage of my life.
yeah.
But like I am with everything I've ever done, when I'm in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And so I look for I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
I want to be completely submerged.
Yeah. Well,
What can we do to help you guys some more, our particular platform? What can we do?
You're doing it. I'm serious, and I'm not just saying that because I don't have any idea. You are doing it.
Can we get you out in front of the public more? Does that help?
She gets me out quite a bit, actually.
Let me give an example, and I'm going to say this here. And one of the things I would like to try to do. There's a gentleman that we're going to get together and talk as he's a stepdad of someone who passed away, and I'm a dad, and we live nearby each other where we see each other getting coffee and stuff like that. So I've reached out. He knows who I am. We've talked. We're going to get together and chat about, like, I know he's struggling. I know his wife is struggling really bad, but he should have a pretty good voice and a pretty good platform. I'd like to get him to get on a podcast to just, there's a whole segment of men that don't talk about their feelings of what goes on, once this happens. But there's also, the more we can talk about this on all fronts, the more it reaches and helps other people, and you don't know how it could still help to save someone else's life.
Yeah.
But this is Matthew Perry's stepdad. I know you guys were very involved with that case. I think there's still some of them are going to court, going to trial, maybe. They're still in the process.
It's still ongoing.
Yeah. And Keith Morrison, I'm going to get together with him and chat.
Okay.
Maybe there's something we can do collectively, because he's got a reach.
He does, absolutely.
And maybe
it's
together
interesting.
it might help.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because, hey, celebrities, man, we recently did an opioid summit, a youth opioid summit up in Reno, and Jeremy Renner is from that area, right?
Yeah, I know.
So we had reached out to him to see if just maybe he would record something for us, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be there in the area. Why don't I stop by?" We're like, "Okay." You should have seen
He showed up?
He showed up.
Oh, that's awesome.
He got up there and talked. You should have seen the reaction. And then, like, putting it on social media, and just even with our own internal, like, we have like a DA-to-day thing that we do, like, internally, right? And as I'm saying, she's always working. I mean, it's like we're LA's in there like weekly, because she's always pushing the stories out. I mean, I must have gotten 40 emails from friends of mine. They're like, "Oh, Jeremy Renner, very cool." Even within our ranks,
he's very relevant.
Very relevant. So I think that's huge, man. Anybody who has a platform, and especially like with kids, I mean, he's an Avenger, right? I mean, like that resonates with them, Hey, listen, I get up there and talk, and it's the DEA guy, 53-year-old, but like, you get someone like that talking, and they listen.
So, and that's what drives me to think about stuff like that, because, we're all parents, and we've brought up our kids, and you tell them about certain things like to do and not to do, and it goes one ear out the other until they hear it from somebody else and it's affirmed.
That's right.
They'll hear it from their friend or their friend's dad that they like, or somebody else, or their girlfriend. You never know, or somebody they idolize.
Yeah.
And it just, then it clicks.
Yep.
And then they start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then maybe they look at that rattlesnake and go, "I don't know if I want to mess with that.
That's
I don't
right.
know if I want to get bit by that one."
Absolutely.
The other one looks cute, but that doesn't look good. I know that's bad.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll reach out and see if there's an opportunity.
That'd be
Maybe
great.
it's something we could collectively do, because that guy's got a voice.
Yes.
And, when Matt Perry passed away, it still resonated. I mean, it still does.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I'm hoping we can do is, Cooper's still very relevant today in social media. I'm amazed that 2.5 years later, he's still very relevant. Those gossip sites, I call them gossip sites, but those internet celebrity sites, they're still very interested in what's going to happen with his case.
Yeah.
If we're at a point where there is some success from a plea or a trial, I know that from a police standpoint, I've been to this where there's been the sentencing. Our goal is to then maybe have a news conference out on the steps like they periodically do at the federal courthouse. We'd love to have everybody that was involved, the DEA, join us, because we will have a number of news outlets that have expressed that they want to be part of that and report on it, especially on that day.
Definitely. Let's definitely talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But she guides me really well. She knows the ins and outs of it.
She looks tough.
Listen, man, I'm telling you though, she's taken me to all these major networks, right? Fox and NBC, and every time we walk in, everyone goes, Rosa, oh my God, we miss you. They give her a big hug and everything. They talk about how she used to bring donuts every Wednesday, which she does for us now. And I always tell them, I'm like, you're not getting her back. Sorry, we got her now. We're not giving her back to you. But no, she's been
good,
like great for us.
If I can help you guys in any way, being with you, talking with you, appearing with you, providing anything, whatever, we feel like we can't do enough.
No, I know.
And I feel like I want to do whatever possible. So we're reaching out to other people to see where you can use us somehow. Use our platform, bring us to speak, bring us whatever. Yeah. I mean, there isn't a subject that I will not talk about as a grieving dad. I'm secondary. It might be one kid or adult in that audience that could make a different decision, and so it's not about me. It's about what I can do.
That's right. I mean, there is no more motivating factor than what you've been through, and it's because my wife and I also have 2 young children, like total start over,
like how
5 and 6.
Oh, geez.
My 5-year-old, he asked me the other day, right? He's always, Daddy, can you beat up a T-Rex? And I just looked at him. I go, to protect you? And he goes, yeah. I go, absolutely. I go, I could beat up the world to protect you, buddy. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's that motivating thing with you. You know what I mean? Like that's, it's I'm being a little emotional too. Like as a dad, it's just what you experienced and what you went through. But even on the backside of it, there's nothing you won't do. And that's what we need, is that type of force, man. You know what I mean? That's talking to people, that's out there. Your voices are so loud, and you can see it.
It's good to hear because it's hard for us to get engaged. Yeah. Like understand what that's like, other than the engagement we get through social media and some. I don't know what the rest of the world says. I know they know, and I run into people all the time that know who we are, and I'm like, great. I mean, I didn't know you guys followed us and stuff like that, but it's important to hear it because we're going to do it no matter what.
Yeah. And listen, nobody can put themselves in your place unless they've been there. My wife's sister, she lost her son when he was 22 in a motorcycle accident. Okay, so I've never experienced it, but I've seen it up close, the grief, and she and I have talked about it, and same thing happened to a friend of my family's, and I asked her because I wanted to pass along some advice, and I said, Rosa, like of all the books you've read and everything, like is anything like stood out, that really helped you? And she just it's just my faith is that for her, and she's like, it doesn't get better, it changes.
It does change,
but it doesn't get better.
It never goes away.
But you just learn to live with it. It was Billy Bob Thornton, I think, that I saw an interview with, who was talking about losing his brother. Did you hear that, what he said?
Yeah, my wife Treva mentions that quite a bit.
Yeah, about how he said, hey, man, at any given time, at any moment of the day, I'm 50% happy, 50% sad. And he goes, you know what, I'm okay with that because that's what he feels like. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to forget him.
I'll say this, that's a good day.
Yeah. I bet, man.
Yeah, so, but it's what you do with it. And I'm thankful that I'm here. Yeah. Because there have been times where I wouldn't be here. Yeah. So I'm thankful for it, but I also feel that, like I've been taught in my life, I've been fortunate through a number of things, and whether it was athletics or business, whatever gets you there, I think we owe it to give back to what got us there. And it's not necessarily money. Yeah. A lot of it's time, but whatever helps you, you got to put back. And so I'm here, and that's part of it, that I've got to give back. I got to continue what Coop started. Yeah. There's other people out there that need help, need to hear, prevent. There's so many different aspects where you need to talk. That grief will kill you. Mm-hmm. It's going to come out no matter at some point in time. There's a lot of different aspects of it that I just feel that that's what I'm supposed to do, and my wife's supposed to do, and so that's anyway, that's why I'm here, and I'm thankful that you're here.
And we're
Thankful that
thankful
you
for
came
you.
in today, that you allowed him to come in.
Yeah. She keeps me straight. Man,
I'm glad we met, and
Me too. Me too.
I'm going to reach out to you about things we might
Yeah.
be able to do,
Let's stay
or
in
I might
touch.
be able to do,
Yeah.
and then maybe we can do something, with another podcast, and hopefully
Yeah.
maybe we can get somebody to join us.
That'd be cool. That'd be great. Please, let's stay in touch. Seriously. Hey.
Thank you again, and thank
you,
you
sir.
for the gifts.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Hey.
This is going to be my new mug. I haven't got it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and love you more.